Cultura. I'm delighted to be joined by Felicia Asiedu from Cvent, who is the Marketing Director for Cvent Europe, who will be talking about the Event Technologist, your secret weapon for creating impactful events. You can use the QR code here, which will be shortly up on the screen, where you can ask questions, which we can share at the end, or we can take questions from the audience as well. So over to you, Felicia.
Thank you very much. Oh gosh, that's louder than I thought it was going to be. It's fine. It's because I've got a booming voice. It's all right. It means you don't need headphones. Fantastic. So the Event Technologist. Before we start, let me just see that everything's working slide-wise. It's not advancing. It's not advancing, tech people. What does one do when slides don't advance? Advance them yourself. Yeah, that's right. As described, my name is Felicia Asiedu. I'm a marketing director. I'm not an event technologist, which is disappointing somehow, because hopefully you'd want this session to be run by someone that understands what an event technologist does. But as I run a lot of the events in Europe, and you'll see on these slides in a little while how many events we run as an organization, I'm very embedded with our event technologists. They pretty much tell me what I can and can't do half the time, so it's fine. I understand their jobs, and I'm here to talk to you about them today. So the first thing I will ask you is, what is an event technologist? Does anyone feel like they know what one is? No, fantastic. That means it's going to be an amazing slide deck, because you're going to be so enlightened with things that you never knew. So full disclosure, we kind of made it up. That's why you don't know what one is, because there's no real job out there that says, hey, I'm looking for an event technologist today. But lots and lots of people do this job. And we did some research back in 2019, where we first started exploring the field of event technology and what people are doing and how they position themselves. And we coined the phrase because we saw that people had the skill set that was needed to run the event technology, not necessarily plan every detail of the logistics of the event on site, but they were very embedded into the technology, similar technology that Cvent runs. So that's where we coined the phrase. It's an emerging job function that combines the strong understanding of event planning alongside a real depth of understanding of technology, and that's exactly what we looked at. So in 2019, we did the first piece of research, and then just this year, last year into this year, we did the second set of research, and that's what this slide deck is basically going to focus on. It's going to talk to you about all the research that we have done. So job roles that we've seen out there, you see here, event streaming technician. When did that rise up? Last year? No, pandemic. Obviously, we needed lots of streaming technicians, and people suddenly became a little bit more interested in becoming the event tech manager. Now, I won't make you read all of this, but it's performance analysis, it's looking at the tech oversight, regulatory compliances, data integrations. Again, we'll see that as the slide deck goes on. Here's another job, technology manager. Probably should have removed the salary, because you're like, I don't want to get paid that. But it's not bad to start off with. But here we've got working end-to-end with all the content teams, the production teams, aligning all of the content onto the platforms that you'll be running. So these jobs do exist. I pulled them up and I pulled them out. You're not seeing event technologists, but you're definitely seeing these job roles coming up more and more. Now, for companies like Cvent, we offer training to people that do work with Cvent. We train people on how to use technology properly. And you'll see here there's a job out there in Austin, Texas, where they're specifically looking for a Cvent administrator. So again, as time goes on, you'll find, virtual tech specialists and all these job roles that are coming up that are new and haven't necessarily been seen before. So over the course of the next so many minutes, this is what we're going to run through. We're going to look at the event technologist and the impact of COVID. Where do they sit inside an organization, their role, and the success and the future of the event technologist. So, beginning with the research, just so you know, it wasn't just America. We are an American company to start with, but we're based in Europe as well. So we looked across all the regions so that we could see, is this role really emerging, or is it just something that's in pockets of the world? And actually, we went across a subsection of different organizational sizes as well, just to make sure that we were seeing, is the event technologist more here or here? I think you could probably guess that they're going to be in larger organizations, but it doesn't mean that smaller organizations don't utilize an event technologist. What we found is that only 12% of the people that we surveyed self-identified as event technologists. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't other people doing it. It's just that they're not identifying and saying, yeah, that's my role, that's my job, that's what I do every single day. I know in Cvent, we have our own event technologists. There are 5 of them. And that's what they do. That's all they know. That's what they want to stick with. But I think for some people out there, they're doing it. They're just not ready yet to say, yeah, that's my job. So definitely an emerging role rising up. So I'm going to give you a quick journey of our Cvent event technologist. So Taylor started at Cvent in client services, supporting and consulting with Cvent solutions for other people. And that's often how technologists do start. They start supporting maybe even agency side, or within the organization, they just start supporting the events. Over time, she became an SME and developed the full understanding of that event planning life cycle. So she got the end-to-end consultative journey of what it was like to plan events. Then she saw an opportunity. So here's a little side tip for anyone outside of event technologist world. When you see an opportunity in your business, grab it. Pitch it to the business. Tell them they need it before they knew they needed it. And that's exactly what Taylor did. She said, actually, I've been sitting here and I think you guys need someone to just specialize in this particular area, and I'm going to do that. And she did it. She is pretty badass. And then over time, she's grown that team from a team of 2 to 5 people. So she manages all the 5 technologists across the globe that work in Cvent. So that should tell you something, if not about being an event technologist, it should tell you something about how to navigate your career inside your own business. Again, side story, I had a friend who worked for Barclays. Her husband moved to Nigeria, can you imagine? And so she pitched to Barclays that they needed to set up a risk management division in Nigeria that she would head. They did it, she went, they set up a good life. Always take an opportunity. Little tip for free. So Cvent meetings and events organization. So we're quite a large, somewhat complex org. So you might be thinking, well, actually, you know, that's why you've got 5 event technologists. You're a very big organization. But this is not typical for lots of organizations. Yes, maybe you could reduce some of the numbers here and there, but actually lots of organizations that we talk to have large, complex divisions, and they're all running lots and lots of events. So as you can see, you've got our event technology team over there, just giving you a bit of an insight into what, you know, they do. TEP infrastructure is what we call the total event program infrastructure. So I've been doing lots of sessions recently about building communities with events and how you get people to go from one to another. Do they go to a webinar, then an event, then get some content, then? That only happens when you think about your events as a whole and not just single, you know, once upon a time events, like I'm coming to Event Tech Live today and I'll never see them again for another year. That's not how we should behave. We should have it all together. And often our technology partners help us to think about how you drive traffic from one event to another. And they often work with marketers like me so that we use the MarTech stack as well to make sure that we are building communities and taking them from one thing to another. So the event technologists and the impact of COVID. Do you think there were more event technologists or less during COVID? Up, down? What do we think? We're going more? Up, that's right. So during COVID, obviously, I'm not going to bore you with the details. Everything boomed, everything banged. It was not a good time, but it was a good time for event tech, I suppose. So the impact of technology during COVID was greater. And what you might be thinking is, okay, that was fine for then, but we've seen some virtual companies not making it. Anyway, we won't dwell on that. But what is happening is that virtual hasn't gone away. In fact, over the last year, about 28% of the registration that ran through the Cvent platform still came from virtual events. It is part of the tech stack. It still lives. So it's not a dying art. It's definitely part of the total event program. But what happened was during the pandemic, obviously, event technologists played a larger role in those virtual events and digital events. And when I spoke to Taylor, our event technologist whose journey I mapped, she was like, I actually felt like a somebody during that time. I didn't feel like back office staff of, you know, just help me get this tech rolled out to build a reg platform and that's the end of it. We went to Taylor and we're like, what do we do, Taylor? What do we do? We need help. We need to understand how this all is going to work together to drive engagement, because people are at home. They're not that interested in our events. We need to like crack through their screens and get to them. And she would give us tips, hints and tricks of what we can do, and she still continues to do that today. So she suddenly took her seat at the table. You can tell I have a lot of love and respect for Taylor, right? Because she really stepped up and she's helped us to understand the importance of this role. And so now, when I say she plays a larger role in event planning, when we run our large tier 1 events in the year, we do consult Taylor pretty much first. We ask her what technology is available. We ask her what technology is not just available in Cvent, funnily enough, but we ask her what our competitors are doing or what outside pieces we can hook on. And what's really cool about working at Cvent, I get to use a lot of our own tech, but we also have partners that integrate with Cvent, loads of them, and they're on our partner platform. So Taylor's that person that will keep abreast of actually, if you just took this and integrated it, you could utilize that as part of your technology. For example, sustainability. We know that we can go out there and we can start tracking sustainability outside of the platform, but she says if you just build this into your reg process, that means that reg data can zip over to your sustainability partner and we can track it better. So all hail Taylor. We love that. So the organizational view of the event technologist. So where do they sit? It should come as no surprise that most of them, 63%, sit in the event planning department, because that's probably where they organically went from anyway. They went from inside the event department to a little niche within the event department. But I think what I do find slightly interesting is that we could undermine these numbers because they look small, but when you gather them all up together, that's another 37%, right? So 37% of these technologists are sitting outside of the event planning world, which means that maybe the organizations are taking them seriously. And maybe they're saying, actually, you should live within our operations team because we understand what we want this business to do and the business goals that are needed, and you can sit within there. I love this because I love the idea that alongside the MarTech stack is the event tech stack, and they're given that same level of gravitas that they should work together. And then information technology, which I find really odd. I find IT people don't really understand our event tech, but if there are event technologists living within the IT department, that's good, because I think it's going to help to promote things like integrations and making sure that the data is flowing in the right way. So yeah, I find these quite interesting to look at. And then 24% of organizations said that they actually have an event technologist. So remember, we saw 12% identified as event technologists, but 24% of organizations say they have one. So that's quite interesting, because maybe what we're seeing is where the person isn't self-identifying, organizations are saying, yeah, that's my event technologist right there. You ask me and I'll point them out to you. But we just need that job title to come up a little bit more and for them to be recognized as who they are. And I think the organizations are doing it. And 43% transfer from internal. And 33% of organizations are looking for event technologists now. They're seeking to hire them. So again, it's one of those things that's on the rise, and it's good to see that organizations are going out there, because when you go outside of your organization, the chances are, as we'll see in some slides down, you're going to find someone with a different skill set and a different set of expertise than what you grew internally organically. It's never fun for someone to hear that, because that's why you get paid more when you move jobs rather than stay in the same ones. I'm not encouraging anyone to move, just saying it. Okay, so why hire an internal event technologist? So lots of reasons. You'll see on this list, what I don't see here is I hired an event technologist to build my registration. It's not a thing. You could probably do that yourself. In this day and age, we know that we're building event technology that's simple enough that if you wanted to build simple reg, you can. You want to build a simple mobile app, you can. It's really loud noise now. I don't want to shout. It's okay, I'm going to carry on. But what you are finding is that people are hiring event technologists for things like data management and privacy, strategery. They want people to think about, what is my brand strategy? How am I going to keep it consistent? How am I going to templatize so that my organization doesn't run rogue? Because quite a lot of people run rogue when they're building events. If you'd like to put your headphones on, you can. It will help you to hear me so that I'm not shouting, because that's just not fair. I could shout. Okay. Yeah. And then operational efficiency, so speed of build, speed of rolling out another event. Like I showed you on our first slides, we run hundreds of events each year. We don't always have the time to start that build process again and again. So having someone who lives in this space means that you can drive operational efficiencies. Keeping up with industry changes, like I said, things are changing all the time. We saw that during the pandemic. Knowing what's new, knowing what's next, knowing how to display content in ways that you haven't done before, that's all going to come from your technologists. And finally, and I would actually probably have put that first, but it wasn't in the research, alignment to company-specific needs. I don't want to use the word rogue, but quite often, I was speaking to, call it large bank the other day, very, very large, very well-known bank, and they were telling me that as individuals were running their events, they were doing whatever the heck they wanted, and it was just causing the event department frustration, like pure frustration, because it's not aligning to what the company's even trying to do. It's basically, we need an event. Why? Because it's important. Why? Because the audience is important. Okay, cool, have one. And that's just not how we should be aligning to our company goals. It should be, what's the business trying to do, what's our audience trying to do, and how are we meeting them in the middle with an event, and then how does technology support that, rather than the crazy ad hoc events that people do try to run. So why hire an external event technologist? Well, again, you're going to get very specific technical expertise. They're going to come into your organization probably with a wealth. Now, I shouldn't say this, but did you know that there are other event technology suppliers other than Cvent? Who knows that? Very wise. Very, very wise people. I didn't. I thought Cvent was the be. I'm joking, obviously. But if you get an external event technologist, they probably are going to have used lots of different types of technology. And by the time they get to your organization, they can make recommendations for you internally that maybe you didn't think about. Or maybe you're stuck in that, you know, piecemeal build where you've been building it yourself, and they can come and say, no, don't do that. There's a better way to do this. You get access to a wider network of vendors. Again, if they come in from the outside, they probably know people. They know someone who knows someone, and they can help you to just make connections in this world that you didn't have before, and then get access to more resources. So even things like understanding how AI is working now, you're going to find yourself quite limited if you stay within your organization. Even myself, I go to lots of external roundtables. I do go to competitor things because I just want to keep abreast of what's going on. So they will help you to drive things forwards. So let's look at their role. So the first thing is about 80% of them are probably working on more than one event at a time, and that's what they said in the research. We know that we tend to juggle events. Event technologists really juggle events. They're working on lots and lots of events at one time, and 63% of them said they're working on they've worked on between 5 and 20 events in the last 12 months. So their chance of rinse and repeat is easier than, say, the planner who sometimes, I just ran Cvent Connect Europe, it's one of our biggest events of the year. My focus was laser. That's what I was really thinking about. I tell you now, our event technologists were not laser focused on Cvent Connect Europe. They were doing that for me, but they were also running so many other things and thinking about what our next 5 events are going to be. And we do have 5 events that we have coming up. I don't know why we do this to ourselves, but they are all over it. And they can provide best practices from all the different events that are running to make sure that my laser focus means that I get the best out of all 5 of those events that are running at the same time. So we know that it's stressful. I hate that statistic that says event planning is the most stressful job after being a firefighter or something. But when you have the right people in place, it can reduce and minimize the stress and drive efficiencies. So their to-do list. So like I said, you're not probably going to hire an event technologist for this, but it does fall into their remit. It's just one of the things that they're going to be working on. I think the bit that I find most interesting is that side. Things like, I've got event presentations in there. You're probably wondering, well, how's an event technologist working on event presentations? I'll tell you. They're the people that when I say I want this presentation to live stream as well, they're like, okay, here's how you do that. And I want to display the live poll during that live stream so the audience sees this, and my in-person audience sees it. They tell me how to do that. They tell me what keys I need and what needs to go to the people at the back so that everything works seamlessly and I don't have to worry. They tell me how to embed in such a way that I know that when it gets streamed out, it doesn't break, because that's also an issue when you try to like run video out, sometimes it breaks, and they will work with the AV team so that none of that happens. Here, in terms of customization, I literally was just talking to someone at our stand. I'm hoping she's not around because I'm about to talk about her. And she was talking about HTML code, CSS, PHP, ASP. And I was like, I know all of those acronyms, but at the end of the day, I'm probably not the person that's going to get into the back end of the system and start coding customized cards and things on top of what we already have. I don't. I'm not going to do that. And most of our planners and our marketers aren't doing that. But for some people, they need that level of customization. And I know that that's where our technologists come in, and they really help us and support us to achieve the goals of what we're trying to do. What they'll also do at that point is shut you down. Event technologists are really good when they're very skilled at saying, no, that's silly, don't do that. That adds extra chaos for not so much benefit, because they're aligned with those organizational goals that I spoke about. So just like the people that run my marketing technology, and I have them in-house as well, our marketing technologists often say to us, no, I'm not going to buy it. I won't buy that extra piece of marketing technology because you don't need it. You've already got 5 things that do that job already. So they really help you to uncover how to use your technology to the best of your ability, rather than you doing every single thing that your CEO thinks about. I know that for Taylor, she said, you know, when she first started working in the job, she found that she was mostly here and here, in building mobile apps and event registration. And she said that over time, what she's really appreciated is that she has become much more strategic. And we really do rely on her to make sure that when we're thinking about things like data privacy and how we're going to set those things up in the first place, she's always asking, well, is there the box there that you can check? If not, then we can't gather that piece of data. You know, she's really on top of it so that we don't have to think about it. And she helps us set those expectations in the right way. So, important skills needed for this role. And this came, again, out of the research. This is not us just saying it. Attention to detail, massive. Project management, I would put project management with the ability to lead, because it's in those areas that, like I said, when they are saying to us, actually, no, let's not do that. Let's go this way. Have you seen this solution? Could I suggest that? They need to be quite strong. Who here is an event planner? Let me try and figure out. Who would identify as an event technologist right now? Hey, woohoo. Okay. Now, are you both? Is anyone both? Both event planner and technologist? Okay. Right. So I think for those that are doing a dual role, you're actually in a very elevated position. It's like, I'm going to give you the AI example. I often say to people, AI is nothing to be feared. It's those that have understood how to harness AI that will probably win. So actually, the planner is nothing to be feared, neither the technologist. It's those that have understood how to harness the power of both that will probably win. Where there's some work to be done is where the technologist and the planner are separate. And actually, they can clash, because the planner has that laser focus of, this is what I want, this is what I need. And the technologist is saying, but why? Does it align? What are we doing here? Do you really need it? When you have the dual role, it's great because you can tell yourself what to do. But when you have that clash, and we have it a lot. We tell Taylor a lot, like, I want this. And she has to be able to sort of shape and tell us, no. And that's where those, yep, project management skills and leadership skills. This is great. Project management skills and leadership skills come in. This, I spoke about already, how to run the AV equipment. It would be good because you'll understand how your event technology and how the AV goes together. Coding capabilities we've spoken about. Communication is always a winner in any role. Top challenges faced by event technologists. And if anyone can relate to these, well done. So lack of decision-making authority. So we have given them the seat at the table that they require. I would guess in many organizations, no one's quite figured that out yet. And therefore, they're not getting the what they need to make those decisions. And like I say, what's really good for us is that we work in event technology. But I know that when our marketing technicians say no, they get the kind of share of the voice. The event technicians wouldn't. We would give it to marketing first. And I don't know if anyone works in that kind of organization, but marketing, I'm a marketer, but marketing tends to be able to speak and say, yes, this is what we want. And the event side and the events teams kind of have to follow that tune. Above that is sales. Typically it's sales say, then marketing say, then the event planner says. God knows where the event technologist fits into that, but you can see why number one is a problem. So what needs to happen is the event technologist needs to rise up the stack and be given more of that seat at that table to say, I believe that as an organization, this is how we'll win. If you think about it, and I know I'm harking on about this, but if you think about how much money an organization typically spends on events alone, that should tell the organization that event planners and event technologists must be brought up to that sort of almost board level so they can have that conversation and say, we're spending millions of pounds, guys. Like, don't we want to put the effort in to make sure that we're doing this properly and we're doing it for the right reasons? Another tip for you, tell them how much money you're spending and they will make you important. Okay, insufficient resources. I think this is just a problem for everyone, but definitely for the event technologists. So Cvent has, do you think we have, okay, another bit of audience participation. Do you think we have less than 1,000 people that work at Cvent? Anyone, hands up? Less than 1,000, no. Less than 2,000? Less than 3,000? Okay, less than 4,000? Less than 5,000. So we have about 5,000 people that work at Cvent, and we're all running events. We have 5 event technologists. Does that make sense? No. So where we see insufficient resources, I mean, no one told my CEO this, but we probably need a few more of them. For an organization of 5,000 that's running events for event technology, 2 people that run events about event technology, we probably should have more than 5 event technologists across the entire business. But that is a very, very typical picture for large-scale organizations. And I think that's, again, because there's not that level of, like, effort put into this department to understand just how important it is. So lack of integration with existing company tech, I know is a big problem. For Cvent, one of the things we've tried to do to solve for that is build a lot of things into our own product so that you don't have to continuously leave the product and come back in and leave the product and come back in. But even if you did, and by that what I mean is you can send emails from within Cvent. You should be able to do that. That should be easy. You should be able to build your virtual event and suddenly you've got an app. That's fine. That should be easy. But what happens for a lot of organizations is they take a piece of event technology, they try to wedge it into what exists and it doesn't work, and then they say, well, that's rubbish, it broke. It didn't break, it probably wasn't maybe the right tech, or you didn't understand how to integrate it with the existing technology. Again, your event technologists will know how to do that because they understand, are we building open API? Are we using your open APIs, or am I customizing some HTML so that we can make that integration work? Lacking necessary skills, there does need to be some skills training. Again, I don't like to pitch Cvent all the time, but we do offer training, but lots of technology providers offer training, and so that people can continuously upskill and make sure they bring that back into the business. I think that one is just mean, because when you have a poorly defined job description, it means that, hey, you can do that. Hey, you can do that. Marketing, it happens to marketing all the time. Whose problem is this? We're not sure. Give it to marketing. If it's event related, give it to the event technologist. Well, that's just not their job. Their job is there to be, like I say, quite strategic and to help guide your organization, not just to pick up the, I can't swear, stuff that you don't want to do. And finally, inefficient processes. So I think these two are actually mixed together again, because if you are not clearly defining the job, then you're clearly not defining the process of how the job gets done. And that can often cause chaos and confusion. So let's go back to my example of we need an event, big bank. What that big bank did is that they put processes in place to say, if the event is this big, you can do it yourself. And I'll give you templates, and I'll give you the means and the ways for you to run that event yourself, from venue sourcing to event registration to delivery. You, person in this organization, will run it yourself. If the event tips over and gets this big, event team will get involved. We'll start to run that event for you. You can get all of our expertise, you can get all of our tech knowledge, but we won't run events below this threshold. Again, unless the CEO says it's a very, very important event, but it's good for the team because they run 350 events a year just in Europe. And therefore, they're able to kind of distinguish, and we've done the same. That's why we have tiers of events, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. If it's a tier 1 event, we'll all get involved. The technologists are involved. Everybody's doing everything. But if it's not tier 1, it starts to slip down the priority list. And if it's a tier 3, we typically kick it back and say, you could do that yourself, so that we're not doing all the events all by ourselves. So I'm going to speedy along just in case anyone's got any questions. So when we're measuring the event tech success, often this is what we want to hear from surveys. How did it go for our attendees? Were they able to utilize the technology? Did they find it easy? Were they able to poll? All of that kind of stuff. That's the most important piece of feedback for us. Client feedback from the people that are using the tech, and attendee satisfaction. We'll also gauge social media, attendance across the event, time spent. We look at how people have basically interacted with all the bits and pieces that we put out there. And quite frankly, if someone's not using it, it's not useful. So then we will utilize that information for the next event and make sure, yes, we'd like to pack all our events with all the tech we can, but if no one's using it, just get rid of it, because then it becomes less confusing for the people that are coming to your event, and they will interact with the technology that you want them to use in the first place. So, future, 80% of the organizations that we surveyed believe that the event technologist will increase in importance over the next 5 years. Going to kick that word in again, AI. I would love to see what happens with this, because I know for now, for Cvent, we've introduced generative writing into Cvent tools. So that's kind of the easy bit. If you want to write, you know, a video snippet or an event description, that's fine. You can use our generative writing tools to write that. But actually what's going to become interesting, and where I think the event technologists are going to really win, is when we finish building our AI for data. Data trends, understanding what decisions to make next. I think that that's where our event technologists are really going to, if they upskill themselves, they're going to win, because they're going to be able to tell us how should we run our events in the future based on the trends of today. I'm going to skip past because I'm running out of time. But this is our Cvent wheel, which you tend to see on our stand. We do all the things, great, great, great. But event technologists will work across every single part of this wheel. What we really like to see is Cvent in the MarTech stack. And this is typical of most mid to large size organizations. They will have at least a few of these things in the tech stack. And this is where these technologists absolutely guide your business, because they will help you to unlock the power of your tech stack inside your own organization. So even if you're only dipping into 1 or 2 or 3 of these areas, the technologists in your organization will really help you to understand how to thread the whole thing together, so you get insights and you know how to make decisions for the future. And with that said, if you'd like to download the research, you can scan that very big QR code there that I may have dumped in about 5 minutes ago, because I realized I wasn't sharing the research with anybody. But that's me, that's my time. Does anybody have any questions at all?
Thank you for that. That was really interesting. So you can add questions to here or also just ask. We've got a few minutes left before the session ends. So firstly, how much influence do event technologists play with implementing new solutions within their organizations?
Massively so. I actually believe that it's very rare that the marketers on my team, or even the event planners on my team, will go outside of our organization and say, oh, I've seen this really cool thing, I want to do it too. And even if they do, they can't implement it. So they'll see it and say it, but then it will die a death because there's no one there to really pick it up and drive forwards with it. So I actually think that it's the technologists that either will take that information from the planners and say, all right, let me go and research that, as our MarTech people do as well, or they'll be the ones to bring it in the first place. And that word implementation, I think, is the most important, because they really sit with the tech and they figure out how to make it integrate into what already exists. So very, very important.
That's great. And what about Cvent's experience with beacons?
So if we're talking about beacons in terms of the passive tracking tools, so we use, I don't know who asked this beacons question, but are you talking about passive tracking tools? Oh, connecting with exhibitors. So the only way that we tend to use beacons is not in that way. We tend to use them for passive tracking, like I say. So we'll have them whereby if you print the right kind of badge, not this, it will track you around and help people to know, or the planner to know, where people are lingering. So for us, when we use beacons in, say, like our innovation pavilion at Cvent Connect, we'll make sure that they are positioned in such a way that if 5 people are lingering around some of our exhibitors, or 10 people, we'll know where the hotspots are within the spaces that we run. And again, that comes out of the event technologist team. They're able to help us to identify traffic flows, so that we can make sure that we put our exhibitors in spaces where people tend to linger. So, I mean, there's a very easy solution to this, and this is where technology and planner comes together. We noticed a couple of years ago that we weren't getting the traffic in our innovation pavilion in our large conference, so we put the food there. I mean, it's you know, simple. So that's where the technologists and the planners were able to kind of say, well, you're not getting it. How do we fix it? Put the food there, they go. And we can see from the data it's working. So I don't know if that helps to answer your question, but
Well, that's great. Thank you. My colleagues just said that time's up now. So one final thing, if you haven't downloaded the QR code and you want to find out more, please do. Anyone watching this on demand will find a way, hopefully, as well, to download the QR code or to get in touch with you directly. But that was really useful. And here's to the event technologists. We need more of them, I agree. So thank you very much.
Thank you.